Hello YouTubers! We're in a wonderful location today, the European Parliament, and I'm with a good colleague and friend of mine, Gary Cartwright, who's a veterans activist, writer, journalist, and even though he doesn't like to say it, a historian, even an amateur historian of note. Why am I telling this? It's not politics today, YouTube. It's just, as you know, British Humanist Association. And in our recent newsletter, we are approaching that time of year again of Veterans Day and wearing the poppy and all that kind of thing. There is a humanist angle to this video, and I'll explain why. In terms of remembrance services, you may know that oftentimes, as it's reported here, just to give you a sample of this, over 26,000 serving members of the armed forces describe themselves as having no religion, the largest category after Christianity. And the bee in our bonnet, as we said, we take issue with the marginalisation of non-believers at, well, poppy commemorations or indeed any other of these civic affairs. To explain what it's all about, the poppy, Gary is going to explain more. Please.
Randall, thank you.
What is it all about?
What's it all about? Well, first of all, to talk about the poppy itself. The poppy was adopted as a symbol of remembrance after the First World War and was really inspired by the opening line of that very famous and very moving poem by a Canadian doctor and soldier, John McCrae. The poem began in Flanders fields where poppies grow, between the crosses row on row. And it was as a result of that the poppy was actually adopted. But when you say, what does the poppy mean? I suspect that what you're really asking is, what does the poppy mean to me? What does it mean to society? Remembrance is very important. Remembrance is not, it's not about triumphalism. It's not about in any way glorifying war. It's about actually acknowledging sacrifices made willingly or unwillingly by millions of people in the last century, before that, and even in this century. Military people, civilian people. It's about a connection. Remembrance is about a connection between past generations and our generation. My great-grandfather was killed on the Somme in 1916, and I genuinely feel almost a spiritual connection with him by the wearing of this poppy, because this symbolises the fields in which he fought and died.
Very good. I would say to my larger audience out there, especially my American and Canadian, well, not Canadian, but American brothers and sisters, it is a quite uniquely British thing. But we're in a very mixed atmosphere here, representing 500 million people in 27 member states, and it's oftentimes, as Gary would walk through this corridor here, I wear the poppy too, and I'm Irish, but as we recently acknowledged the Queen's visit when she was in Dublin, of the 30-odd thousand men who died and were forgotten after the First World War, just because the politics changed. So I'll have all the Republicans up in arms, but I don't care. Suffering is suffering, and we have a right to reclaim back our participants. But as I say, going back, you know, in these corridors, oftentimes, this is why we're making this video to some degree, people have absolutely no idea what does it mean, and they ask year in, year out, which is an odd thing. The British representation here, obviously by quota, is quite large, and you'll see quite a lot of members walking around, and yet people still ask. For me, building on your point, if I may, Gary, yeah, I mean, it's a flower. It's innocuous. It's a very innocent thing. And for me, it is, like you said, it's not about triumphalism at all. A German can wear a poppy, a Belgian can wear a poppy, a French can wear a poppy, because it's just about that. And I don't like, especially in the context of the European Parliament, the European idea, that it's in any way triumphalist or anything like that at all. There's a song, everyone, I'm going to put a link in the description, called The Green Fields of France. Please have a look at this link after this video. It's a haunting story of kind of the sentiment of where, well, it's a beautiful poem, tone poem, and explains where we're going with this. So, you know, it's set up by the British Legion. And how does it work in terms of the donations that people give? It's set up by that to help veterans.
The British Legion, and here in Brussels we have one of the largest overseas branches of the British Legion, alongside Lisbon, actually. It exists not just to help the families of veterans or to help veterans in need. It's very much involved now with current affairs, with current issues, particularly with the welfare of our servicemen and women around the world. There has actually been, in the last 10 years, a depoliticisation of the Royal British Legion, which I am very, very pleased to see. I remember the resistance that the Gulf War Veterans Association experienced from the British Legion. The Ministry of Defence were using the British Legion to challenge the charitable status of the Gulf War veterans, and indeed to set up a rival Gulf War Veterans Association. Those days are completely gone now, and in fact the Royal British Legion is very, very critical of the government and of the Ministry of Defence where it fails to look after the interests of current servicemen.
Excellent. Yeah, because well, besides all this, those political implications, I think I was saying to you off camera, oftentimes I think what people forget, it's it's like when that thing started, everyone, Americans would know this very well. I think after the Great Wars, we're in Vietnam. My American subs can give me their comments on this. I think it was the first time in a major European war where veterans, much to their horror and disgust when they came back home, and remember most of them were conscripts, but they were spat on and abused by people because it was a terribly unpopular war, and I guess the easy victim was the the guy in the wheelchair. He was a veteran, like he was responsible for the war or something like that. And I fear that after unpopular wars, I think people get it sort of all mixed up in their head, Gary. Like in British terms recently, well, let's leave Afghanistan out of it, but certainly Iraq. It was Tony Blair's unpopular war. We've had inquiries and all the rest of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all the merits. But certainly, I would stress to people that oftentimes, soldiers are just working class men and women, and just by any demographic. Yeah, you could have a sergeant or you could have an officer in his 30s or something like that. He may have a few bob in the bank. But oftentimes, I know very well, you've got young soldiers, 19, 20 years of age. Maybe they're in a relationship, maybe they've got children or something like that. Maybe they're maimed for life, or indeed, sadly, if they're killed, and the government will give a pension. But, I think people forget that I think it's a hugely human thing to do. Sometimes we atheists are accused of being heartless creatures, but I certainly think it's a very dignified thing to do to support these men and women, widows, widowers, whatever, at such a young age, YouTubers. I would stress that to you. I mean, they're not well-heeled or rich people oftentimes, and I don't think that's the right thing, and that's what this is all about, besides the significance of that. You didn't add to that, Gary?
I think that we need to support today's servicemen. I think we need to speak out where we see things that we believe are wrong, and here I'll give an example. I was having a conversation on the internet with a friend of mine, a lady by the name of Rose Gentle. Rose is from Glasgow, and her 19-year-old son Gordon was killed in Basra in 2004. Now, this is one of the incidents that highlighted problems with inadequate equipment being supplied to servicemen. And Rose has campaigned relentlessly on this matter, not just because she feels a sense of loss for her son. I'm a father myself of a young boy. I could not imagine how would I feel in her place. I really can't imagine. But she's actually used that grief to create something good. She's politically very active. She stood in the 2005 general election, and Reg Keys, her colleague, very famously challenged Tony Blair on the stage after he had been returned in 2005, asking him, "Mr. Blair, how many of our boys have been killed in Iraq? Can you give me the number now?" And Mr. Blair could not give the number now. And that was just the most... Reg Keys was never going to win that seat, but what a powerful statement that made, that actually we're watching you, and we will speak out. We will speak out now, because it's not a silent organisation anymore. We do feel empowered by the way that the Royal British Legion has changed. We're very, very pleased with the way that awareness of veterans issues is now placed on the national curriculum, so children are learning more about who veterans are. I can remember a little while ago standing in a bar with you, Randall, not a million miles from here, with some friends, and a mutual friend of ours just stopped, and he looked at you, at me, and our friend Norman Henry, and he said, "Here I am, in a bar with representatives of the Army, the Navy and the Royal Air Force. Our Secretary General here in this Parliament is a former officer in the Luftwaffe. I could probably go into any of the coffee bars here and just ask, hands up anybody if you're a veteran. It's not about elderly gentlemen in blazers with their medal ribbons coming out on November the 11th to go on parade. Veterans are everywhere, everywhere.
And I think that will, yeah. And I think sort of to cap it off, to consolidate that point, again, I would just say to people, you know, and regardless of, but I mean, Britain and the United States are the major players internationally, of course, on this, but it's just that point singularly for me. It's like, people, if you're a pacifist, and that's fine, I'm a pacifist too, but, you know, don't shoot the messenger, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, don't blame the soldier, the easy target, you know. You do what you're told, yeah, and as we say in Britain, you take the Queen's shilling and whatever, and that's the deal. There's all kind of sentiments about that. It's very easy, I think, to sit back and just, you know, as I said, the Vietnam syndrome, and just, you know, in an unpopular war, we'll take it up with the politicians. Warmongers are not soldiers. Soldiers hate war. It's politicians who cause war, everyone. And to finish this up, because we don't want to go on too long, but I would say, that was just our perspective from the humanist perspective, everyone. British Humanist Association, or regardless. For American viewers, you know very well that the military has been at the crux of many issues regarding humanism, whether it be gay rights or gay inclusion and all that sort of thing, and just simple recognition. Of course, Americans, I don't have to tell you, many years ago, to add insult to injury, Gary, that George Bush Sr. once said about atheists or non-believers, he said, you know, and that I don't even regard them, whether in the military or not, as being true patriots or true citizens. So this is what we're about, everyone. I know we're a pain in the ass. Just I'm tying the two things together, everyone. We're saying that, as I said, our Andrew, our boss, wrote this very well. We take issue with the marginalisation, it's a mouthful there, of humanists and others of no religion at the National Remembrance Ceremony, and this stance is simultaneously out of date, unrepresentative and discriminatory. So that's it. For British people, write to your MP and your local representative and say that we atheists love our country too, and have served our country too, and have all the medals, and that our medals have as much value as a fellow who pretends to believe in superstition. That's it, YouTube. I hope you found that interesting, and thank you very much for watching. Gary, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.